Most people spend their entire lives wondering why things never seem to go their way, never realizing they've been staring at everything they don't want and wondering why it keeps showing up. Good evening, friend. If you'll give me just a few minutes of your time, your quiet, honest attention, I'd like to share something with you that I believe may very well change the entire direction of your life. Not because the idea is new, but because most people, despite hearing it, never truly stop to examine it. Here it is, simply stated: you become what you think about. Now, I know that may sound deceptively simple. You might even be tempted to dismiss it as philosophy, something pleasant to consider and then set aside. But I'd encourage you not to do that, because this single truth, when fully understood and consistently applied, has produced more extraordinary results in ordinary lives than perhaps any other principle ever discovered. Let us think about this carefully together. Every moment of every day, your mind is occupied with something: a worry, a regret, a goal, a fear, a dream. The question I want you to sit with tonight is this: what are you predominantly focused on? Because whatever that answer is, I want you to understand that is what you are moving toward. The farmer knows better than to plant seeds of thistle and expect a harvest of wheat. He knows that whatever goes into the ground comes up from the ground multiplied. And yet most men and women walk through their days planting seeds of doubt, seeds of resentment, seeds of lack, and then stand bewildered at what the seasons bring them. The mind works precisely the same way. When you focus on what you don't have, you train yourself to see absence everywhere you look. When you focus on what could go wrong, your mind becomes extraordinarily skilled at finding every possible way it might. And when you focus on what you fear most, you give that fear a map and a lantern and invite it to find you. This is not mysticism. This is not magic. This is the quiet, consistent, irrefutable law of mental direction, as reliable as gravity, and just as indifferent to your opinion of it. Now here is where most people misunderstand this principle. They think that focus simply means wishing. They believe that if they want something badly enough, if they imagine it vividly enough, the world will simply rearrange itself on their behalf while they sit comfortably and wait. That is not what I am telling you. Focus, in the truest sense, is not passive. It is deliberate. It is disciplined. It is the quiet, daily act of returning your attention again and again and again to what matters, to what is possible, to what you intend to build with the days you've been given. Think of the greatest craftsmen, the greatest scientists, the greatest leaders you've ever read about. What set them apart was not superior luck. It was not an absence of obstacles. It was the remarkable, almost stubborn ability to keep their minds oriented toward a specific destination, even when every circumstance around them suggested they turn back. That is the power of focus. And that power is available to you right now at no cost, with no prerequisite, regardless of where you currently stand. Let me draw your attention to something else that I find most people overlook: the universe, and by that I mean the sum total of circumstances, people, ideas, and opportunities that move through a human life, does not distinguish between what you want and what you fear. It simply responds to what you consistently hold in your mind with emotional intensity. This is why the person who constantly worries about debt tends to find more of it, not because life is cruel, but because their entire mental apparatus has been tuned to that frequency. They notice every financial threat. They make cautious, fear-driven decisions. They unconsciously withdraw from conversations and opportunities that might have helped them. Their focus has set the direction, and life, as it always does, has followed. Conversely, the person who focuses with steady confidence on growth, on service, on building something of value, that person begins to notice opportunities that were always present, but previously invisible. They ask better questions. They attract better counsel. They make decisions from a foundation of possibility rather than fear. Same world. Entirely different experience. The only meaningful difference was the lens through which they chose to see it. So what does this mean for you, practically speaking? It means that the very first discipline of a successful life is not time management, not networking, not productivity, though all of those matter in their proper place. The first discipline is the management of your own attention. Begin by asking yourself, with complete honesty, what do I think about most? And then ask, is what I think about most taking me somewhere I actually want to go? If your honest answer troubles you, then I want you to hear this clearly: that is not cause for discouragement. That is cause for decision. Because the moment you recognize where your focus has been living, you gain the power to redirect it. And redirection sustained over time is the whole game. You don't have to overhaul your life in a single afternoon. You simply have to begin choosing, deliberately, consistently, without apology, to hold in your mind the image of what you intend to create, the person you intend to become, the contribution you intend to make, the life you know, somewhere quietly within you that you are capable of living. Hold that image in the morning before the noise of the day begins. Return to it in the evening when the noise finally settles. Defend it against the doubts that will come, and they will come with the simple, steady act of refocusing. I want to leave you with this. The universe is not withholding from you. It is not indifferent to your potential. It is simply and always responding to what you broadcast most consistently from within. Change that broadcast, and in time, you will change everything that answers it. The mind, once directed with purpose and held with patience, becomes the architect of the life you were always meant to live. I want you to consider something for just a moment, something that, if you truly let it settle in, may be the most unsettling and yet most liberating idea you have ever encountered. Most people go through their entire lives feeling as though they are at the mercy of the world around them, as though circumstances are happening to them rather than through them. They look at the man who seems to attract opportunity effortlessly and chalk it up to luck, to connections, to timing. They look at their own lives, the recurring struggles, the same problems wearing different clothes each year, and quietly conclude that this is simply how things are, that some people are built for prosperity and others are built to endure. And that conclusion, my friend, may be the most costly belief a human being can carry. Because here is what nobody told them. Here is what was never written on any classroom blackboard or spoken at any dinner table. The mind does not simply observe your life. It creates it quietly, consistently, without fanfare or announcement. It is drawing toward you the precise equivalent of whatever you have been holding inside it, day after day, with feeling and repetition. Think of a radio tower. It does not choose its audience. It does not select who receives its signal. It simply broadcasts, and whatever frequency it transmits, that is what gets picked up, amplified, and returned to it in kind. Your mind operates with the same quiet, mechanical faithfulness. Now, this is not poetry. This is not something I am asking you to accept on faith alone. Look at the evidence in your own life. Think about a time when you were absolutely consumed with a particular concern, a financial pressure, a troubled relationship, a health worry. And notice how, during that season, more evidence of that same concern seemed to appear everywhere you looked. More reminders, more confirmations, more of exactly what you did not want. Was the world conspiring against you? No. Your mind had simply been tuned to that signal, and it found it faithfully, efficiently everywhere. The same principle, however, works with magnificent precision in the opposite direction. When a person holds in their mind a clear, confident, emotionally charged image of what they intend to build, a goal, a contribution, a version of themselves they are committed to becoming, something begins to shift. Not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily. They begin to notice resources they overlooked before. They begin to ask better questions. Doors that always existed begin to appear visible to them for the very first time. Nothing in the outer world necessarily changed, but the broadcast changed, and so the reception changed. This is the quiet miracle available to every human being without exception. Your mind is not a passive recorder of the life around you. It is an active magnet, pulling toward you, with patient and tireless precision, whatever you most consistently and emotionally dwell upon. The only question worth asking tonight is this: what exactly are you broadcasting? Because whatever your honest answer is, you can be absolutely certain the universe has already been listening. I want to ask you something tonight that I suspect nobody has ever asked you quite this directly. And I want you to sit with it honestly, without rushing past it the way we so often rush past the things that matter most. Do you believe that your life, the shape of it, the quality of it, the direction it is currently moving, is something that is largely happening to you? Or do you believe it is something you are, in some meaningful and measurable way, creating? Because the answer most people carry in their chest, beneath the surface of their daily routines, is the first one. And that quiet, unexamined belief may be costing them more than they will ever fully calculate. Here is what I have observed over many years of studying the lives of men and women who built something remarkable from what the world would call ordinary beginnings. They were not, as a group, more talented. They were not luckier. They did not receive some special dispensation from hardship or difficulty. What they possessed, and what separated them from the great majority, was something far simpler and far more available than most people realize. They understood that where they placed their attention was not an accident. It was a decision, and they made that decision consciously, deliberately, every single day. Now let me be clear about what I mean, because this is where the real substance lies. Most human beings allow their focus to be assigned to them by their environment. The morning headlines assign it. A difficult conversation assigns it. A bill that arrives unexpectedly assigns it. And before the day is half over, the mind has been pulled in a dozen directions, none of them chosen, none of them leading anywhere the person actually wants to go. And at the end of such a day, the person feels drained, stuck, vaguely dissatisfied, and cannot quite explain why. The reason is this: they have spent the entire day reacting, and a life built entirely on reaction is a life without a rudder. It moves, certainly, but it moves at the mercy of whatever current happens to be strongest at any given moment. The individual who understands that focus is a choice begins to operate entirely differently. They decide in advance what their mind will return to. They set a direction, and when the inevitable distractions arrive, and they always arrive, they notice them, acknowledge them if necessary, and then deliberately return their attention to what matters. Not with rigidity, not with self-punishment when they drift, but with the calm, practiced discipline of someone who knows exactly where they are going and refuses to be permanently pulled off course. This is not a gift some people are born with. It is a skill. And like every skill worth having, it is built through repetition, through small daily decisions that seem insignificant in the moment, but compound into something extraordinary over time. Consider this. Every choice you make about where to direct your attention today is quietly shaping the person you will be a year from now. The mind you feed most consistently is the mind that grows strongest, and the direction you point your focus most persistently is the direction your life will ultimately travel, as surely as a ship held on its heading will reach its destination, given enough time and enough intention. You are not at the mercy of your circumstances, friend. You are at the mercy of your choices, and the most powerful choice available to you, starting this very evening, is the deliberate, courageous decision to take full command of where your mind lies. That single decision, made honestly and honored consistently, changes everything that follows. And it begins, as all great things do, not someday, but now. I want you to think about something tonight that is so simple, so completely obvious once you see it, that you may find yourself wondering how it managed to stay hidden for so long. Because the truth I am about to share with you has been sitting quietly in plain sight your entire life. In every garden you have ever walked past. In every neglected corner of every yard you have ever seen. In nature itself, which has never once tried to conceal this lesson from anyone willing to look, and yet most people miss it entirely. Not because they are incapable of understanding it, but because they have never stopped long enough to apply it to the one place it matters most. There are men and women today, capable, intelligent, well-meaning people, who have spent years pouring their energy, their conversation, their emotional attention, and their daily thought into everything that is going wrong in their lives. Every setback examined in detail, every disappointment revisited, every limitation rehearsed quietly in the mind until it feels permanent, until it feels like identity, until the person can no longer clearly distinguish between a temporary condition and a life sentence. And the painful part is this: they are working hard, they are genuinely trying, but they are watering the wrong things, and then standing in confusion at what continues to grow. Here is the principle, stated as plainly as I know how to state it. Whatever you consistently give your attention, your emotion, and your energy to, that is what expands in your life. Not sometimes, always, without exception, with the same quiet reliability that a seed given water and sunlight will push upward through the soil regardless of whether the farmer believes in it or not. The mind does not evaluate what you are focused on and decide whether it deserves to grow. It simply responds to the attention you give it. Tend to a thought daily. Feed it with emotion, revisit it with regularity, speak about it with others, and that thought becomes a belief. And beliefs, once established, shape every decision, every action, every interpretation of every event in a person's life. This is why two people can face the identical circumstance and arrive at entirely different destinations. One has spent years watering thoughts of possibility, of resilience, of forward motion. The other has, without realizing it, carefully cultivated a garden of limitations, and each of them is living in the garden they grew. Now here is where I want you to take a breath and truly hear what I am saying next. This is not a condemnation. It is an invitation. Because the very same principle that has been working quietly against the person who waters doubt works with equal faithfulness for the person who makes a decision to water something better, something truer, something worth growing. You do not need to tear out the entire garden overnight. You simply need to begin today choosing which seeds receive your water. Begin giving sustained, deliberate attention to your strengths rather than cataloging your shortcomings. Begin returning daily to the vision of what you are building rather than rehearsing the obstacles in your path. Begin speaking about your goals the way a farmer speaks about a coming harvest, not with arrogance, but with the quiet, grounded confidence of someone who has done the planting and trusts the process. Because here is what I know with absolute certainty, friend, the harvest always reflects the tending, always. And the most powerful gardening tool ever placed in human hands is not ambition, not talent, not circumstance. It is deliberate, sustained, daily attention pointed in the right direction. You already know how to grow things. You have been doing it your entire life. The only question remaining tonight is a beautifully simple one. From this moment forward, what will you choose to water? I want to share something with you tonight that I believe, once you genuinely understand it, will permanently alter the way you relate to your own mind. And I say that not to create expectation, but because I have seen this particular truth, when finally grasped, free people from patterns they had been trapped inside for decades. Patterns they had tried to escape through willpower, through positive thinking, through sheer determination, and could not. Because they were fighting the symptom while the cause went completely unexamined. Here is what I mean. There are people who want success deeply, genuinely, passionately, and yet spend the majority of their mental and emotional energy consumed by the thought of failing. They want the promotion, but cannot stop rehearsing the conversation where they are turned down. They want the business to grow, but lie awake at night calculating every possible way it might collapse. They want the relationship to heal, but replay every wound with vivid, exhausting detail. And year after year, despite their desire, despite their effort, despite their sincerity, the thing they most dread keeps finding them, and they cannot understand why. They believe they are focused on what they want, but if you were to sit quietly beside them and observe where their emotional energy actually lies, where the intensity is, where the daily thought returns, where the conversation naturally drifts, you would find it is not anchored to the dream. It is anchored to the dread. And that distinction, my friend, is everything. Here is the principle you must understand clearly. The universe, and by that I mean the sum total of your circumstances, your decisions, your perceptions, and the opportunities that either appear or remain invisible to you, does not operate on the basis of what you want versus what you do not want. It operates on the basis of what you are most consistently, most emotionally, most deeply focused upon. It makes no moral judgment. It applies no filter. It simply responds to the signal with the greatest strength and the greatest repetition. Desire and dread are both powerful signals. And when a person's dread is more vivid, more emotionally charged, and more consistently revisited than their desire, the dread wins. Not because the universe is cruel, but because the universe is consistent. It delivers the equivalent of whatever broadcast is strongest. This is why a person can recite affirmations every morning and still produce results that look nothing like those affirmations. Because the affirmation lasts 2 minutes. The underlying dread occupies the remaining 23 hours and 58 minutes. And the math, as it always does, tells the truth. Now I want you to sit with what I am about to say, because this is where everything shifts. The moment you understand that both signals carry equal power, you stop being a passive recipient of whichever one happens to be loudest. You become, instead, a deliberate operator of your own mental frequency, and that changes the game entirely. You do not eliminate the awareness of risk. You do not pretend that obstacles do not exist or that failure is impossible. A sensible person never does. What you do is make a conscious daily, disciplined decision about which signal receives your sustained emotional energy. You acknowledge the concern, you address what is practical and within your control, and then you return your focus firmly, without apology, to the outcome you are building toward. You feed the desire, deliberately, consistently, with the same faithful repetition that previously fed the dread. And over time, not all at once, but with the steady reliability of a tide, what you are moving toward begins to shift. The opportunities you notice change. The questions you ask change. The decisions you make change. And the results, as they must, begin to reflect the new signal you are broadcasting. This is not a promise wrapped in pleasant language, friend. This is a law, as dependable as any law in the physical world, and it works with absolute impartiality for anyone willing to apply it honestly. You have always been magnetic. Every human being is. The only thing that has ever been within your power to choose is what you are magnetic to. Choose tonight, deliberately and without hesitation, to point that extraordinary power toward what you want most, not toward what you dread losing, not toward what you fear may happen, but toward the clear, defined, emotionally held vision of the life you are committed to building. The signal is yours to set, friend. Set it with intention, and then hold it there. I want to talk with you tonight about something that I have come to regard, after many years of careful observation, as perhaps the single greatest silent thief in human life. It does not announce itself. It does not arrive dramatically. It simply settles in quietly, comfortably, almost invisibly, and begins doing its work. And what it steals is not money, not time, not opportunity in the conventional sense. What it steals is direction. And a life without direction, regardless of how much energy or sincerity or genuine desire is present, is a life that spins rather than advances. I am talking about vagueness. The soft, comfortable, entirely dangerous habit of wanting things without ever truly defining them. Look around you and you will find it everywhere. The person who tells you they want to be successful, but cannot tell you what success looks like for them specifically, measured in what terms, achieved by what date. The person who says they want more money, more happiness, more meaning, but has never once sat down and translated that more into a concrete, defined, written destination. The person who has been meaning to change their life for years and years, who feels the desire genuinely, who talks about it with real emotion, and yet remains year after year in approximately the same place. Not because they lack ability, not because the circumstances are impossible, but because they have been moving with great sincerity in no particular direction. And you cannot arrive somewhere you have never clearly defined. Not in navigation, not in life. Here is what I want you to understand at the deepest level possible. The mind is a remarkable instrument. Given a clear, specific, written target, it begins immediately to organize itself around that target. It starts filtering the noise of daily experience and surfacing what is relevant. It asks better questions. It notices what it previously walked past. It begins connecting dots that appeared completely unrelated before the destination was defined. Scientists who study human cognition have understood for decades that the brain functions with dramatically greater efficiency when it is given a precise problem to solve rather than a general one. Precision activates the mind in ways that vagueness simply cannot. This is why the person with a clearly defined goal consistently outperforms the person with a vague wish, even when the person with the wish is more talented, more educated, or more naturally gifted. Clarity is a force multiplier. It takes whatever ability you already possess and focuses it, the way a lens focuses scattered light into something capable of starting a fire. And here is the relief in all of this, friend, because there is genuine relief here, and I want you to feel it fully. Clarity is not something you are born with or without. It is not a personality trait reserved for a certain type of person. It is a discipline, a practice, a decision that any human being, regardless of background or current circumstance, can make at any moment they choose. It begins with a single, honest, unhurried question asked of yourself. Not what do I think I should want? Not what would impress others? But what do I, genuinely, specifically when I am completely honest with myself, intend to build with the time I have been given? And then you write it down. Not in vague, comfortable language. In specific, measurable, time-defined terms. Not I want to be financially secure, but I intend to have this specific amount saved and invested by this specific date through these specific means. Not I want to be healthier, but I will weigh this amount, sustain this habit, and complete this goal by this point on the calendar. The act of writing it transforms it. It moves the goal from the soft, shifting world of feeling into the solid, committed world of intention. An intention, held clearly and reviewed daily, is where achievement is born. Review that written clarity every morning before the world makes its demands of you. Read it every evening before the noise of the day finally settles. Let it become the fixed point your mind returns to automatically. The way a compass needle, no matter how it is jostled, always finds north. Because here is what I know with complete confidence, friend. The achievers, the men and women throughout history who built something lasting from what the world considered ordinary raw material, were not operating on hope. They were operating on clarity. They knew with a precision that most people never permit themselves exactly where they were going. And that knowledge organized everything else around it. You are not lacking ability. You are not lacking opportunity. You are not lacking time in any final, irreversible sense. What you may have been lacking until this very moment is the clear, written, daily, reviewed definition of where you are actually going. Define it tonight, friend. Write it down. Read it tomorrow morning. And watch what a focused mind given a worthy and specific destination begins quietly and faithfully to build. I want to speak with you tonight about something that trips up even the most sincere, most motivated, most genuinely determined people I have ever observed or studied. And I say sincerely determined because that matters here. These are not lazy people. These are not people lacking desire or willingness. These are people who have read the books, set the goals, made the declarations, and thrown themselves into action with real energy and real commitment. And yet something is missing. The results they expected have not arrived on the schedule they anticipated. The outer world has not yet rearranged itself to match the vision they carry. And in that gap between what they have done and what has not yet appeared, a quiet, corrosive doubt begins to grow. A suspicion that perhaps they were wrong to believe. Perhaps the principles do not apply to them. Perhaps transformation is something that happens to other people in other circumstances, and their job is simply to accept what is and stop reaching for what could be. And so, one by one, they quietly let go. Not dramatically, not with a single moment of surrender, but gradually, imperceptibly, like a fire that is no longer being fed, they dim, and the life they were on the verge of building never quite arrives. I want to tell you why. And more importantly, I want to tell you what they did not understand that would have changed everything. Here is the truth that most people, in their understandable impatience, overlook entirely. Every transformation that has ever occurred in a human life, every lasting shift in circumstance, in achievement, in the quality of daily experience, began not with an action, but with a change that took place completely out of sight. Inside. In the way a person thought about themselves and their possibilities, in the beliefs they held about what was available to them, in the internal image they carried of who they were and what they were capable of becoming. The outer world, in every case, was the last thing to change, not the first. Consider the seed beneath the soil. From the surface, for a long time, nothing appears to be happening. The ground looks exactly as it did the day the seed was planted. A person with no understanding of how growth works might conclude that nothing is working, that the planting failed, that the effort was wasted. But beneath the surface, an entire process of transformation is underway, silent, invisible, and absolutely unstoppable, preparing to break through in a form that will be undeniable once it arrives. The human mind works with the same patient, invisible faithfulness. When you begin to consistently hold a new image of yourself, a more capable, more purposeful, more directed version, your mind begins reorganizing around that image long before any external evidence confirms it. Your decisions subtly shift. Your standards quietly rise. The things you tolerate change. The things you pursue change. The way you carry yourself in a room changes. None of it loudly announced. All of it building, compounding, preparing the ground for what is coming. And what is coming, given consistent inner work held with patience and daily intention, is as inevitable as the season that follows planting. This is the relief I want you to carry with you from this evening forward, friend. The absence of visible results is not evidence that nothing is working. In most cases, it is simply evidence that the transformation is still in its underground season, still building the root system that will support everything that is about to emerge. Your one responsibility during that season is not to dig the seed up in impatience and examine it. Your responsibility is to continue the inner work. Continue revising the image you hold of yourself. Continue returning daily to the belief that what you are building is real, is possible, and is already underway beneath the surface of what you can currently see. Read what builds you. Spend time with ideas that expand your sense of what is possible. Guard carefully against the voices, internal and external, that would have you conclude that you are the exception to the rule, the one for whom growth does not apply. You are not the exception, friend. You are subject to the same magnificent laws as every human being who has ever built something worthy from the raw material of daily thought and daily decision. The world you want to live in is being constructed right now. Not out there somewhere. In here. In the quiet daily, deliberate work of becoming, before the becoming is visible to anyone, including yourself. Trust the process with the same confidence a farmer trusts the ground. Tend the inner work with the same faithfulness you would give any endeavor you believed in completely. And know, with the calm certainty of someone who understands how transformation actually works, that what is growing in you right now, unseen, unannounced, and absolutely real, will in its proper season break through the surface of your life in a form the world will not be able to ignore. It always does, friend. It always does. So here is what I am asking of you, not someday, not when conditions improve, not when you feel more ready. Tonight, before you sleep, take a single sheet of paper and write down clearly, specifically, without hesitation, one thing you intend to build, become, or achieve. Not a vague wish, a defined destination. Then read it, let it settle in. And tomorrow morning, before the world makes its demands of you, read it again. Do this every day. Guard that written goal the way you would guard something irreplaceable, because that is precisely what it is. It is the seed of your future, and it requires your focused attention to grow. The most successful men and women who have ever walked this earth shared one common habit. They knew, with absolute clarity, what they were moving toward. And they returned to that knowledge every single day. You now know what they knew. The only question remaining is whether you will do what they did. Begin today, friend. The universe is already listening.